Good morning. I'd like to call this meeting Public Works Procurement and Contracting to order. Today is Wednesday, September 21st. Roll call, please.
Calling the roll, Mr. Germana.
Here.
Mr. Miller. Mr. Miller is absent at the moment. Ms. Conwell.
Here.
Mr. Greenspan.
Here.
Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent. There is a quorum.
Okay. I expect Councilman Miller here any minute because he's in the building. Can we have a motion to excuse Councilwoman Simon? She is on vacation out of country.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Any public comment, Janine?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
Okay, so we have the minutes of August 3rd, 2016. If anybody's ready, I'd accept the motion for approval.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. And Mr. Miller is in the meeting room. Okay, matters referred to committee. First one, Janine.
Resolution number 2016-0156, authorizing a utility agreement with City of Olmsted Falls for installation and maintenance of a joint sanitary sewer operation, maintenance, and repair of pump stations and wastewater treatment plants.
Good morning.
Thank you. The City of Olmsted Falls is extending new sanitary sewer service and pump stations and force main out to sections of roadways within the city limits. A portion of that new sewer project serves both township properties and city properties. And this agreement's going to provide for the county to participate in the cost of those joint sewers where it serves our township residents. The county will pay 50% of the cost for construction of new joint sewers, and the county will pay 50% of the cost for ongoing maintenance and operation of those jointly owned sewers. The agreement includes a separate section on providing maintenance services for the city where they own the sanitary sewer wastewater treatment plant and where they have existing and the new city pump station. This agreement allows for us to bill them for services to maintain those city facilities. The cost for the county portion of the sewer will be paid by sewer tap-in fees collected from the township residents as they connect to the sewer. The estimated cost for the county portion of the construction of that new sewer is $522,907. That's an estimate right now. We will be working with the city to tie down an exact number here in the near future. We're requesting council's consideration and approval to enter into the agreement with Olmsted Falls, and I'll be glad to answer any further questions.
How many township residents are going to be paying the tap-in fee?
The section that's just township includes about 40 township parcels, and that totals roughly around 4,000 to 5,000 lineal feet of frontage along that sewer.
Okay, and their tap-in fee is going to equate to the $542,000 construction cost?
It will roughly, if you recall, the tap-in charges are kind of a global tap-in charge for the whole District 14. But generally speaking, yes, they recover the cost to extend and pay for these sewers. I'm expecting the city will be obtaining OPWC funds for this as well, which will help reduce the cost of the sanitary sewer also.
And the length of the sewer, is it about equal between the city and the township?
I think I don't know exact numbers on this, but I think there's more sanitary sewer serving city customers than there is serving township.
So the 50% was decided on,
The 50% is where we have the sewer going up the road, and on one side, it's city residents, on the other side, it's township
got
residents.
it, I got it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Other questions, Mr. Greenspan? Ms. Conwell, then Mr. Greenspan, and Mr. Miller.
Through the chair, I see it says 35% sanitary sewer district funds as well as 65% road and bridge funds. Are road and bridge funds allowed to be used on projects such as this?
The road and bridge funds were actually committed in prior agreements. There was a 2012 agreement to pay a portion of the roadway costs that were impacted by the construction of the sanitary sewer. And in 2015, there were 2 county roads that were added to the project that were going to be resurfaced as well. So that's what that split is representing.
Okay, so
So
that funding would go strictly to,
Road and bridge,
okay.
or to county roads, I'm sorry.
Okay, and you mentioned around the $500,000 figure, but I see it says in the book, the total construction of our portion would be 1.5, so.
Yeah, that would include both the roadway commitments from the past as well as the sanitary commitment as part of this agreement.
Okay, so, but this particular one, since that's encompassing old funding, is just gonna be roughly around the 500 and some thousand.
Yes.
Okay, could you say that figure again for me?
$522,907.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Greenspan?
Thank you. So having some history, Mr. Chambers, I think you were involved with this years ago with the folks in the township being required by state law to tie into sewer and the financial hardship that's going to cause them. We need to be prepared, just as we did, it was 5 years ago, wasn't it? Is that about right? Be prepared to offer, we offered home loans and
We have a county loan already in place
for these folks.
because they're in, that district area.
Okay. I just want to just be prepared. I'm very familiar with this area, having represented Olmsted Township in the past, and not as familiar with the falls as Mr. Gallagher is, but these are substantial tie-in fees to these homeowners who largely are retired. Often their property values have not increased. They have, some of these tie-ins are pretty financially burdensome to these homeowners. So the Board of Health doesn't come in and foreclose on them. We need to be prepared to offer them, if possible, some type of financial assistance package for tying in, as we've done in the past with township folks. Okay, thank you. It was just a general comment.
And I'm not that familiar, but Cook is a significant road.
Yeah, Cook is significant. The issue is these homes are not very high value, dollar value homes. And oftentimes when you look at sometimes the run from the street to the home, often the price not only to tie in, but for the tie-in fees, but the cost sometimes exceeds the value of the home. And so in some of these areas, we found that a few years ago. So the county was instrumental in matching up these homeowners with loan programs, not grants, but loan programs, to assist them in meeting the state law of requiring them to tie in the minute that sewer, not the minute, but as soon as sewer is available. So I just want to make note that we should be prepared to do the same thing here, because the issue is going to come up.
So you bring up a good question. correct me if I'm wrong, but the tie-in is to the sewer at the street, but from that tie-in to the house is the resident's responsibility.
Yes,
We
it's-
don't get involved in that.
No.
Okay. So, great. Mr. Miller?
Could you explain, through the chair, how it's determined that the county is going to pay 50% of the cost as opposed to the township simply doing it on their own and assessing the residents? Is there something in state law that governs this, or how is this determined?
We're operating under 6117 of the Ohio Revised Code, which enables us to collect for the cost to connect to the sewer. The project itself, the 50% is in areas where the sanitary sewer is being constructed, and on one side of the road, they're township residents. On the other side of the road, they're city residents. So logically speaking, you would just divide the cost in half for that section of sewer. We're not participating in any other costs of sanitary sewer, just what property frontages are served by their extensions of new sewer.
Why doesn't the township and the city do it jointly and split the cost between them and recover it from the residents, as opposed to our getting involved in fronting half the cost being the cost on the township side?
Well, we are the owners and operators of the sewers within the township area. So being under 6117 of the Ohio Revised Code, so we are the responsible agency to enter into the agreement with the Olmsted Falls to extend the sewer.
Understood. That's what I was asking.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. Let's see, this is effective 9/13, so we're a week behind already. Are they ready to go to work? I mean, I'm getting at, do we need second reading suspension on this?
No, we don't. They're still computing their tentative assessments.
Okay,
So that's why we have to come to a final number with that first. They're anticipating beginning construction, I think, early in 2017.
okay. So with that information, I move that this be moved forward to the full council for second reading. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any final questions? I have one. Ms. Campbell?
Through the chair, as far as the actual constructing of the public works, or the county is not connected with that, the contracts to actually construct it is not coming through us for bidding or anything like that?
No, it will be going through Olmsted Falls.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for second reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next,
Resolution number 2016-0157, authorizing an amendment to contract number CE 1400100 with HDR Engineering for design services for rehabilitation of North Main Street Bridge, number 00.12 over Chagrin River in the village of Chagrin Falls.
Hi, Nicole English from Public Works.
good morning.
We're presenting part two, really, of a contract, not necessarily an amendment per se. As we do our bridges, we do a part one to figure out if we're going to rehab, replace, what the structure is going to be, and then we enter into a contract for part two to actually finish the design work on this project. So this is part two for $644,290. Originally, HDR was selected through our RFQ process in late 2013. The original contract came before Board of Control in April of 2014. Any questions?
Okay, and I was looking at that 9/13/2016 is on this one, not the last one, so that's where I got that crazy number from. Mr. Miller?
What's the estimated total construction cost, including the engineering plus the construction?
About 4 million total, 3 million of construction, and then the engineering is around $1 million. This project we're seeing as higher engineering costs because it's environmentally really challenging out there. We're over the Chagrin River. We're in a historic district. If you're familiar, the popcorn shop is actually on the bridge. So it's a pretty complicated design to rehab the structure.
And how is the condition of the structure currently rated?
Looks good.
It was currently a general appraisal rating of 4 with a sufficiency rating of 57.3. So it's in need of rehab.
So 4 where 1 is low, is that correct?
Correct.
So it's on the wrong end?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the expected construction timetable?
We're expecting construction to begin in 2019. We have federal funding for the construction through the local bridge program, the CAO, for 80% of the construction dollars.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
I'm just gonna ask one.
Ms. Conway?
I drive over that bridge, probably not as much as Jack Schramm, but
That's for sure.
it's like a bridge where you drive over and people walk.
Correct.
It looks fine to me. They determine it underneath.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, there's pieces falling down underneath, the stones are falling out. So it's through inspection that we identify that it was need.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
So what is the need as far as speed?
It would be helpful to get it approved on second reading, just to get the design to keep them going. It's not
Under second
Terrible.
reading suspension?
correct.
Okay, so we're halfway with this, so no use in delaying it. If there's no objection, I'm going to move that we move this forward on second reading suspension. Second. Been
Thank you.
moved and seconded. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay. Next.
Resolution number 2016-0160, authorizing amendments to various revenue-generating agreements with Educational Service Center of Cuyahoga County for lease of space at various Cuyahoga County Board of Developmental Disability Centers for operation of Help Me Grow programs for the period 9/15/2013 through 9/14/2016.
Hello, my name is Kathy Caldwell. I'm the purchasing manager with the County Board of Developmental Disabilities. Usually Chuck Correa stands before you. He is at another meeting and couldn't get out of it, so he asked me to step in. I'm just going to read his statement. We are requesting a second
Can you
amendment.
speak into this? Because I'm
Okay,
having a
I'll
little
come
difficulty hearing.
Down here a little bit.
Yep.
We are requesting a second amendment to a lease with Help Me Grow Educational Service Center to use the Pat Day and Green Road facilities. The original lease was 2 years from September 2013 through September 2015. The first amendment was 15 to 16, and this second amendment is for 2 years for the term of September 2016 through 2018. The CCBDD is requesting the approval of these lease amendments with the Educational Service Center because Green Road and William Pat Day are owned by the county. Both facilities have been operated, maintained, and improved for the past 33 years by the County Board of Developmental Disabilities exclusively with Board of DD funds. The amendments have been approved for legal form by the County Law Department. and each of these leases will generate a revenue of $2. For the extensions, the primary goal of these leases is for the County Board of Developmental Disabilities to assist Help Me Grow in providing service coordination to over 1,100 children ages 0 to 3 who reside in Cuyahoga County and receive evidence-based early intervention services from the County Board. There are a total of 32 Help Me Grow staff, service coordinators, who will be housed between Green Road and William Pat Day. The County Board is Help Me Grow's public partner in providing EBEI services for eligible children and families. Consequently, charging Help Me Grow less than fair market value for these leases results in more children and families in Cuyahoga County to receive service coordination. These facilities were at one-time schools. However, the changes in federal and state law requiring children with disabilities to attend their local school districts caused space to become available. Other tenants that we have in these facilities at this time are CEOGC for Head Start and United Cerebral Palsy. We also have many CCBDD staff, including behavioral health, early childhood, adult services, nursing, and occupational and physical therapists. And that is our conclusion. Any questions?
So I don't know if you'll be able to answer this, but we've had a significant amount of these that come through, and that come through for approval for the $2, and
Yes.
we understand in practically every case it's just a no-brainer. Do you have an idea about how many of these leases you have with how many buildings?
Currently, it's Help Me Grow at the 2 facilities, CEOGC, which will be coming up before you in not too long. Those are at 2 facilities as well. And United Cerebral Palsy, that might have come through a year ago. We're trying to make them in longer term, if that's what you're asking as well.
No,
But
I'm
that's what
asking, how many of these arrangements do you have?
that is it at this time.
Well, what I mean is there's other buildings that we've approved these leases on. Guess you're not aware of them.
We don't have any other entities in our facilities except for the William Pat Day and the Green Road facilities at this time.
Okay,
But we have multiple entities in those 2 facilities.
okay. So then it's not as many as I thought there was.
No, I think, I do take that back. I think Goodwill Industries came before. They're at our Beechwood facility with a computer aid space in the building. I do take that back. That is correct. Bingo.
Okay.
So that's, we're trying to do public partnerships.
Well, I think it's great. It's a no-brainer. I'm just wondering
you.
why we, well, of course, it's because Cuyahoga County owns the building.
Correct. We have limited ability to own, through the county board and statute, we have limited ability to own property. We can only own residential property or property gifted. So these buildings back, 30-plus years ago, 40 years ago, almost 50 now, were purchased through the county or in the county's name. But again, every penny has come from county board funds.
Okay. Mrs. Connell.
Through the chair, I remember all these leases usually when they come up, but I thought the dollar figure, and maybe it's the law department that could answer, it was always $1.
This is
Why-
a 2-year agreement.
So why did we increase to the,
Oh, it's 1 year, 1 year, 2 years.
gotcha, okay, so,
$1 a year, buck a
all
year.
right, gotcha, okay.
We lose interest on that buck a year, too. Mr. Miller.
Thank you very much for coming in and presenting. And my question through the chair is whether the Help Me Grow programs at these 2 facilities serve entirely or primarily children with developmental disabilities, or do they just serve the whole broad range of the population like any other Help Me Grow facilities?
Help Me Grow in general provide services to all Cuyahoga County newborns through 3. In this facility, it is that partnership of those folks that do, the staff that do work with the DD population are in the facility with our folks that work with the DD population. But I do believe they also work on other cases. So it really is, I guess it depends on their caseload and Help Me Grow.
So perhaps they serve more of the DD population than other facilities that are not located here, but not exclusively.
I don't have the ability to answer that, I'm sorry. I do know that Help Me Grow, it currently is under the Board of Health, but is planning to be under the Board of, or under the Developmental Disabilities. I understand that's happening through the state, I believe, but if you would like to have more information on that, I can certainly have Lori Mago send you some information.
Okay, I
great.
would appreciate that.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I understand there's going to be a lot of changes with the
A lot of changes.
with the Department of Developmental Disabilities, but I think most of those are going to be coming under Health and Human Services, not Public Works, Procurement, and Contracting. Okay, any further questions?
Since this, it looks like this contract has already expired a couple days ago, is that correct?
We're a week back.
So in that case, I'm going to move that we recommend Resolution 2016-0160 with a recommendation for second reading suspension.
So, it's moved and seconded. Any final questions? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed nay, motion carries. This goes to second reading suspension.
Thank you.
And next, we have miscellaneous business discussion regarding cost and electric consumption of Cuyahoga County buildings.
Good morning again, Mike Chambers with Public Works.
Good morning.
Morning. Back in 2015, we came before the council for a contract with AEP Energy. This was run in partnership with the County Commissioners Association of Ohio, and Palmer Energy was kind of their manager of the project. And at Councilman Greenspan's request back then, we were asked to come back kind of midway through and provide an update, and today we're going to do that. I have Mark Fry, who's the president of Palmer Energy. He's got a short PowerPoint presentation and give you guys an update.
Thank you. Mr. Fry? Welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak in front of you. And I'll try to keep this as brief as I can. I tend to sometimes drone on when I start talking about energy stuff, so but I'll do the best I can to keep it as short as possible. As you requested, Mr. Chairman, we wanted to get back to you and give you some information on what's going on with the electrical cost situation in comparison to the prior contract with First Energy Solutions, and we prepared this to do that. So let's just give you a refresher. You can read the 8 or 9 page report at your leisure, and if you have questions, obviously you can reach out and we'd be happy to answer any of them. But the contract started almost a year ago now, and with AEP Energy, there's an on-peak and an off-peak. On-peak is during the daytime, during the weeks, and an off-peak are weekends, holidays, and then during the middle of the night, what typically would be called the graveyard shift. And you could see those prices at 5 cents and about 3.8 cents per kilowatt hour. And the reason that we went forward with an on and off peak structure and then what's called a capacity pass-through was from our analysis, it appeared like that provided the greatest opportunity for savings for the county's operations and facilities. So that's the reason we went down that. The prior 12-month average contract with First Energy Solutions was about 6.8 cents per kilowatt hour, and that included all the various components. So really, I have 4 particular things I want to go through: the contract savings to date, the installation of some interval meter information, and then projected savings of the contract, and then actual contract costs. So one thing I will mention is that under the prior contract, the reason that price was so high is it was working through some high generation capacity costs around the rim of Lake Erie a number of years ago. First Energy and another large power producer decided to shut down some coal-fired generation. They did so, and during some auctions, part of the cost of electricity on the wholesale market is this generation capacity charge. There were 4 months of that embedded in this particular contract that expired about a year ago. The first 12 months of this contract, so we had 8 months we had to work through on this particular contract. That's the reason why those red lines are on there. This is a comparison of the prior contract versus what the costs contracted to be with AEP Energy. And as you can see, unfortunately, there was a cost to that on a monthly basis for the first 8 months, and that's because of the generation capacity costs that I just mentioned. And then as those generation capacity costs expired, you can see we've got 3 months of savings. We expect over the 12-month term that the savings will balance out, relatively speaking, within a few $100s compared to the last contract, and then it would roll forward with ongoing savings. The reason we could have approached this to spread it out like butter on top of a piece of bread, and we looked at the pricing that way, but unfortunately the offers we received from the various suppliers didn't offer as large a savings opportunity for the county's operations as what this particular approach did. And that's one of the reasons we made this recommendation, understanding that we had to work through these high cost capacity prices, but unfortunately we didn't control that piece of it, and because of the structure, it created some minor, well, not minor, but it created some losses short term to create better savings in the longer term basis.
Mr. Chair,
Greenspan.
how do you want to handle questions?
Well, if it's pertinent.
Yeah.
And
Can you go back to the first slide?
Sure, absolutely,
I
sir.
don't think I have the first slide. I don't think we have the slide package. The slide before this, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
So if the contract was at 5 cents a kilowatt hour on peak and 3.8 off peak, how is the weighted average higher than that?
The capacity pass-through is another cost component. The cost of that capacity was set for those red lines at $296 a megawatt day, and your capacity costs multiplied out created those incremental costs to drive the price of that electricity above the 6.78 cents. So the energy piece, the on-peak and the off-peak, was one component. The other piece of this was the capacity pass-through piece. That's what drove us into a negative position over those first few months.
Can I get a copy of this slide presentation?
Oh, absolutely.
later?
We'd be happy to provide it.
And moving on to the next slide.
Mhm.
So what you're saying is because that capacity issue from October on this slide till May, we exceeded the original cost expectations?
Well,
For
we exceeded the prior contract. It was that, we understood that this was going to occur, but this was the best way to create the largest long-term savings for the county's operations.
And now June going forward, we anticipate savings.
Correct.
What do you anticipate the monthly? That's a savings over what we were, so is the savings between May and June roughly $60,000? The delta between the 29.6 negative and the 29.2
Yes, according to
positive?
the contract, it's about $60,000. That's correct.
Okay, for that 1 month period. So when we see 73,071, that's true savings over a full month. Is that correct?
That's actual contractual savings. Now, we have, I'll mention to you, and there's some information on the thing, we're still trying to work through some of that. We have had some billing issues with AEP Energy that we're still trying to work through. And we've run, I think, most of those to the ground, but we are working through those. And but this is what the contract calls for, and we're making progress. And unfortunately, it's not billed by AEP the way that it was originally contracted. But we're working through that.
So these savings for June, July, and August are actual savings based off bills received?
No, these were information provided by AEP Energy.
Okay.
I was given some information by Public Works today, and so there might be some challenges associated with a few of these months that we still have to run to ground. So this is contractual savings.
What do you mean challenges? What might we be looking at?
My understanding is what was contracted by AEP Energy and what you actually saw on some of your invoices don't match up. So we're trying to work through that with AEP Energy and get those things rectified as soon
Don't
as
match up
possible.
in whose favor, our favor or their favor?
Originally, it was our understanding that they were matching up in your favor. What I saw this morning was an invoice that didn't match up in their favor. So that piece is new information to me. So that's what we have to work to figure out.
And that contract with AEP runs through when?
It's a 32-month agreement, so it would be May of 18.
And what's our renewable energy consumption as a percentage of the power we're buying from AEP?
It's 75%, sir.
If we were at 100%, what would the rates look like instead of 5 and 3.8?
I don't remember what the actual numbers were. It would be another $1,000 to $1,500 a month more, maybe, incremental cost, but I don't recall those off the top of what the incremental costs were to go from 75 to 100.
If you can get that to me, that with the slideshow, with the
Sure.
slide presentation, that'd be helpful.
Sure.
Thank you.
As long as we stopped, can you explain whose capacity, what's this, how's this capacity charge figured? Whose capacity, just if you could explain that capacity charge.
Sure. There's a regional transmission organization called PJM, which manages the wholesale supply of electricity on an hour-to-hour, day-to-day basis across 13 parts of 13 states, including all the state of Ohio. And in order to meet those capacity requirements, they hold auctions 3 years in advance, and then they have follow-up auctions, and this is called a base residual auction that occurs. So in May of this year, they were setting contract prices for this generation capacity, and they're out 3 years in the future. So starting June of 2019 was this. So they hold an auction based upon localized supply and demand. So there's generation that's bid into the auction, and they come up with the lowest price possible. So as generation capacity is available in a marketplace or can be imported or exported from a market, in this case, Northern Ohio, First Energy footprint, that those prices get established. So when First Energy went forward a few years ago, along with another generator called GenOn, and decided to shut down some of the coal-fired generating plants, that created a short-term imbalance in the market that we've worked through here in the last 12 months. So the price of capacity went from $120 a megawatt day on the system to about $357, and with imports it came out to about $296 a megawatt day of cost. Did that help you, Mr. Chairman?
It does help me that we need people that understand this helping us with this. Mr. Miller.
It sounded like you said that when you added the negative numbers and then the positive numbers for the last 3 months, that you said that would balance off to within a few dollars. But when I added them up, it was something closer to minus 50,000. So could you clarify that?
Sure. If I said that, Councilman, and I misspoke, what I meant to say, or what I thought I said, was over the first 12 months. So there's another month yet to do, and I can actually show you a chart later on that'll show you what we project the savings to be, if that's okay with you all. And this is a much busier chart because it takes you the whole way through the end of the contract. But if you notice the September contract, if you add that value up, it comes within that particular savings up. It comes within about $1,000 of the so those last 4 months of the green bars come up, basically balance out the red bars.
Okay. The other question is that you said in the current monthly billing there was a variance not in our favor between the contract amount and the billing amount, and my question is how large was that variance?
I don't, unfortunately, I can't tell you how large the variance was, Councilman, because I'm not sure what's all embedded in that. I just saw that this morning, so it's going to take me some research to get a sense of that. It was not an insignificant cost But as I said, we were working through some other billing issues that were in the county's favor in a substantial ways, that needed to be caught up. So I need to understand, get a full understanding of that piece of this new thing that was tossed to me today to take a look at. So we'll work through that, and I would be happy to come back once we work through that and make another presentation if you all would like me to do so.
And final question on this chart here. Why is it that the savings are the highest for July 16 and August 16 being in the over 70,000 range, and in the remaining months it ranges from just under 40 to 60 on a gradually declining slope.
The majority of that difference is the cost of generation capacity from one year to the next. It changes every June 1st through May 31st, so that generation capacity starts to rise, every year out, which is what's modifying those numbers.
Doesn't have anything to do with air conditioning.
Clearly, usage based upon a really hot summer like we just experienced will change those numbers somewhat. But these are based on historical numbers. We obviously don't know what the weather's going to be in the in the future.
Mr. Greenspan.
Just getting back to the cost.
Sure.
Cost here. So I'm now focused on 100% renewable versus 75%. You said $1,000 a month.
Completely off the top of my head,
but that's total. So what's our monthly bill
across all your facilities, sir? For the generation piece, it's $300,000 or $400,000 a month.
No, I mean, when we write a check to pay the bill, what's the total amount of the bill?
You're using about 55 million kilowatt hours. Well, if I may.
Mr. Chamber, you know that right off the top of your head, right?
The exact number, but I will tell you this, when we got the proposal back a year ago, we were currently at 50% renewable energy. We had the proposal that said what 75% would cost and what 100% would cost. And with the executive's office, we went through and we felt that 75% was a reasonable jump. And that's kind of why we chose that. I can get you the utility bills. I don't have that off the tip of my head.
Yeah, the only reason I bring it up, I know Mr. Foley's here, and obviously he knows where I'm going. Next week, we're going to have a discussion on the LEEDCO project, and there's a cost per kilowatt hour for the various forms or sources of electricity. I'm trying to say, okay, look, if we go to 100% renewable, which we're not now, how would that impact the price per kilowatt hour? I kind of did a number, and I got to about 7.5 cents a kilowatt hour from 6.7, about a 12% increase. I'm just curious if that's right, so we understand what the apples to apples comparison between 100% AEP renewable versus the hybrid model, pool, wind, and solar that we're going to hear next week. That's what I'm looking at.
I mean, I can shoot you the original proposal to kind of show the differences. I think that was in our original.
We had both a 50% and a 100% price.
Right.
So, we kind of, you all
the middle.
sliced it down the middle.
that should help.
So we know what the 100%
understand where I'm
was. I
going.
just don't
Yep,
remember what
you
it
got
was
it.
off the top of my head.
Okay,
All
good
right.
question.
All right,
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
Sure. So one of the things that we recommended as part of this modification was to install interval meters at some of your larger locations. And the reason that we did that is we believed, and this has been borne out with the data, that First Energy, if you don't have an interval meter which tracks your demand on a short block basis, what they end up doing is estimating what your peak capacities are. And when we looked at that data, it appeared to us that those numbers were higher than they should be. And so we recommended to the Department of Public Works to install some interval meters at 1200 Ontario and some of these other larger locations. And those particular facilities had an aggregate peak PLC, which is that generation capacity level on an aggregated basis of about 9100, 9200 kW, or about 9 megawatts. The new aggregate peak as of June 1 dropped to 7600. So that is about $87,000 on an annualized basis. Now, obviously, that changes based on weather, but generally speaking, we think that the net result of that is an actual tracking of your true demands long-term will save you money on an ongoing basis. So that's one of the benefits we see with the interval meter installation. The other thing that,
Approximately how much did the meters cost us?
I think they were like $800 a piece or something like that. There's like, a handful of them. So it was a few $1,000s.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Miller?
so what exactly do those interval meters enable you to do?
It enables the utility to look at your actual, when they set these generation capacity levels, they look at the 5 highest hours for the prior summer. So this past summer, we'll set the generation capacity for next year. And they're gonna look at the 5 highest hours on the entire PJM system. So if it's July the 18th between 3 and 4 p.m., what the interval meter does is it allows the utility to, or actually forces the utility to look at that actual demand for those buildings on those days, rather than running models to project it. And the models, from what we saw, based upon, and for most customers, it's perfectly fine. You have different kinds of facilities than the average office building and that kind of thing. So what ends up happening is you have a little different profile, and that creates an opportunity, or created an opportunity, to install the interval meters, and therefore get a true measure of what your demand is on those hours when those peaks are set.
Okay.
The other thing that it does, it also allows us to track your actual on and off peak consumption based upon looking at your loads versus the load profiles that the utility said was actually there. It didn't make any sense to us because of the way that you use your electricity in some of those locations was very steady. But the load profile that the category they put you in wasn't as consistent as what your actual consumption was. So the other benefit of installing the interval meters was a shift from what originally was 6139, which is what the utility said that it was, to about 5743, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but it does add up to about 20 grand a year of incremental benefit for the county. Keeping in mind that it's only 5 interval meters, but 80 to 90% of your load's actually embedded in those interval meters. So it's part of the 80-20 rule. And then this is the chart that you've already seen. Over the entire 32-month time frame, we expect savings, assuming everything remains the same, of about $1 million, about 31 grand a month. So substantial benefits for this particular contract. I'd be happy to answer any other questions.
Through the chair, what are the 5 locations that the interval meters are at? And why not have them at each location?
When we analyzed, we looked at the 5 largest locations, or actually I actually looked at the 10 largest locations, Councilwoman, and when I looked at the load profile that the utility assigned, because they've got like 8 or 9 different load profiles, and I compared that against your consumption pattern, I looked at those locations where there appeared to me to be a significant variance from what it appeared your load probably looked like to what they were indicating that it looked like. So I looked for that variance rather than if it looked like it was an office building and they're billing it and put you in an office building category, you're probably not going to see nearly as much variance, and they're probably reasonably accurate with that representation. But for facilities that aren't like that, that's why I recommended to the county to only do those 5 locations, because it wasn't free. Now, on a going forward basis, we'll continue to evaluate that, and if there's other facilities that looks like it might make some sense, then obviously we'll make the recommendation to you to do that as well. As for why not, other facilities, the law of diminishing returns starts to kick in once you get down below a certain consumption. There isn't enough of a dollar impact probably to make it worthwhile.
Because I figured that you install them to get a true feel of what our energy costs would be.
What your actual consumption is, so that you get billed for what you're actually consuming when you're consuming it, and not what they estimate you're consuming and when you're consuming it.
Out of your 5. So you kind of guesstimate the other buildings that do not have these interval meters. So it's not a true of all our buildings.
Correct, that's correct, ma'am. But it is 80 or 90% of your annual consumption on the CEI system. So it's a preponderance of your requirements.
Okay, and then Interval meters, are they pilot or ongoing? We bought that equipment and they will be always on those buildings that we own?
Yes, ma'am.
And they're on buildings we own and not lease?
That I can't answer for you, ma'am. I'm not, I mean, I made the recommendation, I'm not sure what you lease and what you own. I'm
We
assuming.
lease this.
It's not, I think this is CPP, so I don't think it's on this one.
Yeah, if
If
can
you have
just
an
give me
interval
the-
meter on CPP, I wouldn't be
Yeah,
aware.
just
Do you
give me
know
the
who
answer.
they are? What buildings? Do you have any idea? Of course, because of the jail.
Two there with the jails,
Yeah,
there could be two or three there.
Ontario, 1,200 on,
That's Justice
Okay.
Center, I think there's a couple there, and, I'm not sure if we got a Virgil Brown or Jay Nunn, but I think there's there's probably two or three in the, all right, there we go. Jane and the Hunter, the Coroner, and the Justice Center. I think the Justice Center has a couple,
You said the corner?
yeah. Medical examiner.
We don't own that building though. You do?
Yeah, but there's a lot of usage on that one. We're paying the utilities on that.
Okay.
Even though
Yeah, we lease that.
We actually own.
We own that.
We own that, but we have a managing company that runs it for us. So, and we have UH in there now, so there's a meters in there to help us with that. But Justice Center was clearly our target.
and keep in mind that we're talking about $500 or $800. You know, you've already seen your return on your investment many times over for those modifications. So to the extent that operations shift or whatever over time, you've still received a return on that small investment.
I'm just worried that we're not getting the true overall picture, but, I don't understand all those.
It's a valid concern, Councilwoman. One of the things that, we're gonna do on a periodic basis is look through those other locations that aren't interval metered and say, does it make sense, and talk to Public Works about it to make that incremental small investment on those other locations.
Okay. Any final questions on that? Well, thank you very much. Very informative.
Great. Thank you.
I'm glad the number is going in the right direction.
Appreciate it, and we'll
Okay.
be happy to get you
Just-
all the information.
Mr.
that you
Chambers?
requested.
I just want to mention too, we have Keith Glosser from the County Commissioners Association here with us, since they're our co-sponsor. We run this program through the County Commissioners Association. I just want to recognize him that he's here in the audience as well.
Having anything important to say?
No, I just wanted to throw that out.
Okay.
made the
Great.
trip.
Welcome. Thanks for making the trip. Okay, just on future business, I have a conflict potentially on October 5th. Now, I have no idea if Public Works has got anything coming on the next council meeting or not. But, so there's two things. Either we have a quorum without me, and Mr. Miller, you'll chair it, or if Health and Human Services is not meeting on that Wednesday, I'm wondering if we could take their spot, because I will be done by 1 o'clock with my appointment. Any comments?
I have that time set aside, so it's fine with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll see what comes on the agenda, and we'll play it by ear, but I've got this commitment that I've got to, can't be here at 10 o'clock on October 5th. Thank you very much for your attendance. Is there any other final questions or public comment?
No one is signed in for public comment, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
Mr. Greenspan, I guaranteed by 11. Promise made, promise kept. This meeting's adjourned.